Came to Fairbury in 1961, a long time ago. Before that, 18 years on a farm in rural York, Nebraska, plowing the ground, throwing the hay bales. It was decided pretty much by myself and my father that I wasn't going to be able to make a living for life on 160 acres of good farm ground. I worked at KAWL in York for a few months, and I was encouraged to attend a broadcasting school in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and see if I could make a living as a radio announcer. After 2 years, I received my federal electronic engineer's license. Also, advanced speech class, which is basically a broadcasting school. At that time, KGMT 1310 was going on the air, and they needed somebody. I agreed to come to Fairbury and go to work. One of the first things I noticed in Fairbury was friendly Fairbury. The words actually meant something. As I went around the square, people greeted me like a friend. Two of the people I worked with, I think most of you probably know. Darrell Junker was the manager of the radio station. Another guy was Rick Mack and the Polka Party. Rick retired from KSAL in Salina a couple of years back. I remember the square was busy. There were stores on all sides of the square. Off the top of my head, east side of the square, a place called Bozeman's in Fairbury. That would have been a store for women. Fairbury used to be open on Saturday nights, as a lot of small towns did. Then they switched over to Thursday nights. And that Thursday night, some of the merchants decided it's not making them any money, and they closed early, and some more of them closed earlier and earlier. And pretty soon, on Thursday night, the town rolled up the carpet at 5 o'clock. People had found that they could shop in Beatrice and Lincoln too, so this kind of hurt Fairbury. People are willing to travel 25 to 75 miles to go shopping. I was taught when going to school in Minneapolis and working at a service station, the customer is king. At a gas station, a customer would come in, and the first thing we do is hit that drive with, "May we fill it up, sir? Hand me your ashtray, I will empty it for you. Pop your hood and I'll check the oil." And we had people coming back. That's the one thing I noticed here that I didn't see it as much. But the evolution of the small town, the small business was, first of all, we had the ones like Endicott's, excuse me, Steel City, Deacon, and they fulfilled a purpose. When we were a horse and buggy or a horse and wagon society, we couldn't travel great distances to do our shopping. The smaller community benefited us. As the cars became more popular, it was easier to drive to Fairbury. The smaller towns suffered. And now, because of transportation and better roads, Fairbury is suffering along with Seward and other communities like that. As people go to Beatrice, they'll go to Lincoln, they'll go to Omaha to do the shopping. I don't know where it ends. I counted 59 businesses the other day that are no longer in business in Fairbury and the Fairbury area. They've just plain gone. I ran the ambulance in the late 60s. First of all, the ambulances were originally handled by the funeral homes. And that's statewide. Small towns, the funeral homes did all the ambulance work. And this worked for a while. It had certain problems, but they were doing it mainly as a service. But the funeral homes decided to get out of the business, and they gave it up. Jefferson County was gracious enough, and about had to, take the ambulance service over. For a couple of years, it was bid out to whoever the lowest bidder was. That worked for a couple of years. I did it that way for a year or two. And then we finally set a budget. And I ran the ambulance, my wife and I, for 4 years. Clyde Kelly became sheriff. The county commissioners came up with the thought, why not combine the sheriff's office with the ambulance? So that's the time I became a deputy sheriff for 2 years. One of the ambulances was parked in my garage. We didn't have any facilities or places to put them. So we made do with what we had. The ambulances were basically hearses that could be turned into an ambulance with a cot and so forth and so on. 1970, the first real ambulance we had, and we could carry 4 people in it. And we put a lot of miles on that one. Anyway, I became a deputy sheriff in 1973, I believe. And July the 15th of 1975, I became a city police officer for the next 27.5 years. When I first came to town, the biggest employers would have been the high school, the grade school, things of that nature, even out of town, the brickyard. But there are no really big employers now, except for, well, the hospital's now a big employer. But Fairbury Junior College left. It went to Beatrice. We lost that. We lost the railroad. What happened, the police department was in the same building where the city council chambers are now, although it's been remodeled for the city council. We had a chief's office, storeroom, main office, and a counter where we could greet people. There was a switch on the wall, and if an officer was not on hand and somebody wished to speak to an officer, they come and flick the switch, and it would light up a light on the top of the Fairbury State Bank. Now, to this day, if you'll take a look at the top of the bank, you're driving southbound on the north east side of the square. There's a fixture up there. The bulb's no longer there, but they'd flick that switch and a red light would go on. The officer happened to be in the area and saw that red light on. He knew that he had a call. At first I didn't recall the light plant having a radio, but the light plant served as a dispatcher, if you can call them that, along with their other tasks. Somebody could call, we could flick a switch and run our calls to the light plant. Whoever was working at the plant would then take the call and call the officer in the police car. Okay, you've got call such and such location, and that's how it all started. I was in the city council late 60s for a 2-year term and swore up and down I'd never do it again.
What was the difference back then?
It was a quieter time. I do recall that Ron Schwab, our local attorney, was mayor. And it came up that the area across the highway north of 14th Street was still in the county of Jefferson. And there was quite a to-do about that. The people in the rest of the town thought the people in that part of town, even those in the county, ought to be in paying taxes like everybody else. I polled members of my constituency, and to the one they said yes, they should be in. Anyway, Ron got a consensus from the council. If I bring it up to a vote, we vote for annexation, and will you go along with it? And to a man, everybody said, yes, we certainly will. Well, a delegation of residents from that area, and I don't even know if any of them are around anymore, came and put a little bit of pressure on the council, and 6 of the council members, as I recall, voted not to annex. 2 voted to annex, myself and another gentleman. And needless to say, the mayor was not a happy camper. And I had people that didn't like me for about the next 10 years because I voted to bring them to the city limits. Well, my thought was, they didn't vote for me in the first place, they didn't represent them. So, and the people that I represent wanted them in. Like anything, changes, sometimes for the better, sometimes not. We still live in a fine community, and I was blessed by marrying the prettiest girl in Crookston, Minnesota, still as far as I know, and having 4 sons that I'm very, very proud of. And they were raised in Fairbury, Nebraska. Matter of fact, I have one son right now who's thinking about moving back from Omaha with his family to live in Fairbury. It's a great place to raise the kids.